Hi, James. We're going to spend a
Hey,
little bit of time talking about the kind of real core of Go Proposal, which is the actual proposal itself. And I know you spent a lot of time as a history almost to why the proposals are structured and presented in the way that they are. So I think what would be really useful is if you can just give us a little bit of that history, give us the kind of the background to why we are where we are today.
yeah, sure. So, hey, Richard, good to be talking to you. Go Proposal was developed long before it kind of found the accounting industry. So I had a marketing agency 7, 8 years ago, or maybe longer, maybe 10 years ago even. And I had the challenge of how do you kind of communicate the value of your offering to a client very quickly whilst you're actually with them. So I'm a really impatient person. So I always wanted to be able to kind of have the meeting and generate this beautiful document whilst I was with them. And what I was doing was actually going away from the meeting and spending a long time laboring over it. And because I'm a designer, then you kind of titivate and kind of tweak all the little bits and you make it look good. But at the end of the day, you got to balance that with speed as well. And it was frustrating that I wasn't getting out quick enough. But anyway, I devised a structure and a process that worked through developing hundreds and hundreds of proposals for our clients. But then what was happening was they were then impressed with our proposals. They then wanted me to help them with their proposal process, whether they had a formal proposal process or a version of a proposal process. It's essentially how do you communicate the value of what you're promising to the client? So I ended up working with many different industries, from a loft conversion company to a landscape gardener to waste management to wealth management. Waste management to wealth management, that's quite kind of a big leap. And again, just helping them to do the same thing. So every time the proposal was a central document, and we just kept analyzing it and scrutinizing it from every single angle, from B to C, from B to B, different industries, and the same philosophies and fundamentals started to bubble up to the top every time. And they're the ones that have endured and made their way into Go Proposal.
This isn't about the software. This is actually about the actual document itself, its structure, the way you're presenting things. Is that what we're talking about here?
100%. And what it's about is about human behavior. So it's okay kind of having theories in there, but what I'm always interested in is watching actually what happens and what people do. So the big turning point for me actually was we developed a proposal for a loft conversion company. So I always draw a lot of analogies with them, and accounting actually it's quite interesting. But what they effectively do is they're coming in and they're ripping the roof off your house and building something more beautiful, which is a bit like when a new accountancy firm goes in, you kind of rip the finance function up and start again. So these were like expensive loft conversions, like 70, 80,000 pounds. They were like the top ones in the area. And they had these proposals that were okay. And I came in and I looked at it, and he had a very clear structure that he wanted it to work, that he wanted it to follow. And he'd done all this research and read these books and listened to these experts, etc. And what you've got to do, this is what everyone thinks, present all the value of your offering, like build it up, show all the benefits and how you're going to change their life and what it's going to look like and all this stuff. And right at the end, once they've understood all the value, you show them the price. Okay. So I'm like, lovely theory. Let's put it to the test. So we printed it, we sent it digitally, we got people to look at it, we tested it with family and friends, and everyone did the same thing every time we gave them a proposal, which was what?
Went straight to the back page and saw what
the
prices.
Went straight to the price. It's all they want to know, right? So they go straight to the pricing page. So I said, right, why don't we make the pricing page the first page in the proposal, like before the content page? Yeah. So we had it that you opened it up, and there in front of you was what this was going to cost.
Yeah.
Rather than force the client to go through a meandering journey through the proposal, we actually looked at what the behavior was, and then we presented there. We then evolved it ever so slightly after that, and we did find that actually you can have 2 or 3 pages, very light pages, to have a brief introduction, a testimonial possibly, before you get to the price, but you've just got to get to it quick.
Yeah, right. So this is kind of moving away as proposals as being marketing and propose to something different, isn't it? This is get rid of the marketing stuff and get to the meat as quickly as possible.
Really key, Richard. So people think that a proposal is a sales document, and there is an element of that in there, in the fact that you can communicate some values of your business and your offering of your services. But fundamentally, a proposal is not a sales document. A proposal is a closing document. So whenever I get confused with what something is, I always just kind of draw analogies with human relationships. So you're married, I'm married, and you go through a courtship you met your wife, you go through a courtship process, and you meet people, you date and you do all that type of stuff. And throughout that process, hopefully at some point you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with each other. And then you make a proposal. You say, I want to marry you, right? And that request has got a specific function, which is, let's get a ring on the finger, let's agree a date, and let's get married, right? And so you can draw the same analogy with producing proposals for a client, right? So when you made that proposal to your partner, and when I made it to my now wife, and thankfully she said yes, I didn't have like a huge presentation or a big sales pitch, or had to remind you of all the the sale's been happening for like the 3 or 4 years before that point. The proposal is, I'm here to close the deal. It's got a very specific function. So whilst there is an element of selling, I'm going to dress up smart, I'm going to say the right things, I'm going to make it nice, etc. I'm closing the deal. And it's the same with a proposal. It's not, if you're putting too much sales content in there, so you're making the sell of your business, of your values with videos and all this type of stuff, all those things have a place, but it was before that. We don't want to confuse what the purpose of the proposal is.
Okay, so let's just turn to the proposal then, because you've got a convincing story about why it's kind of important and why you've structured in a certain kind of way, but perhaps you can run through that structure with us.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to pull one up, Richard. If you can just bear this in mind. Bear with me for a second, not bear this in mind. Made no sense.
I like the idea of Go Proposal extending into the wedding market there, James.
You know what? Do you know Google Alerts? Do you use Google Alerts?
Yeah.
So I set Google Alerts up for Go Proposal, Go and Proposal, etc. So that any mention of us, I get an email through, right? And so the majority of the content that I get coming through is just about weddings, and someone is going to marry someone. So I have to sift through all that all the time. So yeah. So I'm just going to share my screen, Richard. So I've been through the pricing components, and I've put the relevant information in here. And I've also put through a selection of services, and we've been through, and you would agree the monthly price. And if they don't want to spend that much, not a problem. What do you want to take out? Let's put it on the roadmap to consider, etc. And we get to a point where we've agreed the price with the client. We're now at a point where we want to generate the proposal, right? So we need a bit of information to go into this. So first of all, we need information. We need information from your side, from the accountancy firm side, like who is producing this proposal, who is going to be responsible for this client, who's going to be servicing this client when we move forward. I always agree a follow-up date when I produce a proposal as well, Richard, because I hate that awkwardness of, is it too soon to ring them, or have I missed the boat with it? So let's just have a mature conversation about how long it's going to take you. And just one interesting thing to note in here, and there's a couple of schools of thought on this one, and I'm actually cool with both. I think they're all okay, is putting goals and objectives in a proposal. So how much depth should you go into in terms of articulating your understanding of their business, exactly what they're trying to achieve, etc. And I know there's some really interesting approaches. The Gap have some really interesting approaches around this and building out objectives, and that's cool, and we can certainly accommodate those in Go Proposal. But the specific way that I'd always intended it was that what's the ultimate goal? What are we trying to achieve here? So if you was to work with us as an accountancy, if you were to work with, if our accountancy firm was to work with you in a year, 3 years time, how would you know this has been a great decision for you? How would you know that this was the correct move? So what I'm attempting to do is to articulate all of their goals and objectives into one concise statement. So let's say, for example, Richard, for me, when I was signing up with MAP, that was actually what my goal was when I first started working with MAP. That was what I wanted to achieve. And it's okay, when do you want to get there? So let's just put a date on here. 30 days had to make 31 days in December, right? So let's say that was the day. I'll set it for the future for the sake of this. So you can elaborate and build on goals, but to my mind, I really like the concept of just establishing a very concise goal. I'm also going to just put my contact details in here as well, Richard.
That thing around the goals is about also making it very personal to the person you're sending it to. It's locking it into some kind of quite an emotional objective that they've got, as well as a practical business one. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely, Richard. And I think, you know, you could establish a big list of goals and objectives, and that's all cool. But very often they're arbitrary. And I think if you can sum up what someone's trying to achieve and distill that down to one statement, that shows the greatest understanding of what that person is trying to achieve. It's harder to write one statement, one paragraph, than it is to write a list of bullet points and objectives that you've copied and pasted from somewhere else. So I don't see this as actually a shortcut or a simpler thing to do. I think it's harder to write that. Okay, so I'll talk you through the structure that we have refined. So clearly communicating your brand on the front is very important, and making sure that's well presented, and being mindful that this can be printed out as well. To very clearly explain what this is and who it's for, and that anyone looking at this document from the front of it instantly knows who created this, and is instantly known who it's created for, and that the relevant contact details are on here, so that just from the face of that document, you don't have to go anywhere. You've got everything you need to know who it's for, who did it, who you need to contact, and just present all that information without people going hunting in there. And both sides need to know that. So if I'm a client and I want to ring you to say, yeah, I've got some questions about it, I shouldn't have to, where's the contact details? Like, I've got it, ring them. And likewise the other way as well. So it's really important that it's presented as succinctly as that.
Yeah.
If you've got any questions, we can take the questions we go through.
Will do. So we're just making it as simple as possible, aren't we?
Yeah, and this is the other key thing here, I think that's a common thread, giving people the information when they need it.
Yeah. So
no one has to go hunting. I know when you're going to need this, and so I'm giving it to you right here.
Yeah.
I think I like to articulate a testimonial in here very early on, or if not a testimonial, as we've got here, a quote from the business owner to communicate what the values are, what the benefits are of working with you, and what you stand for. So we make these distinctly different to the content, so that people can gloss. So like, just looking at that from a distance, Richard, you could gloss over that if you needed to. Like, if you don't want to read that, I've made it very clear that it's not factual information you're getting. You can move through that. So that's why it's distinctly different to any of the other content in there.
Yeah.
So testimonial or inspiration. It could be an inspirational quote as well. They're the three things: a testimonial, an inspirational quote from a hero or something like that, or from the business owner, your values and what you stand for. There's two things here. Content pages, seems like such a simple thing, but it's alarming how many people miss a content page out. But you're just helping to signpost people and help them to navigate to the information that they need, because they may see this document for the first time now, but they may also be revisiting this document once they start working with you. So you want to be able to help them to navigate and get to the point they need to. And likewise, if you've got a member of staff, they may need to know where to get the information they need as well. And that's another important thing to be mindful of, Richard, is that when someone produces a proposal, let's say I'm the business owner and I'm producing it for you as the business owner, and they only think about that relationship, but in actual fact, there's multiple stakeholders involved in this. So it's not just me, the accountancy firm owner, but it's my bookkeeper, my accounting technician, my financial controller, whatever, that's all going to be using this, my office manager. They all need access to this. And likewise, on your side, it may not just be you. It may be, you know, your HR person and your assistant, and everyone needs access to this. So it's really being mindful of multiple stakeholders involved in this document as well.
Yeah.
We reinforce the brand again, and also to make sure that, just from a legal point of view, that the document has the correct number attached to it, page numbers in case anyone was to omit a page from signing something, and also the legals of that accounting business as well. So just from a technical point of view.
Yeah.
We have a very, very brief introduction. We've tested this out and looked at kind of lengthy ones, shorter ones. You've got a very short attention span. People want to get to the price. They're itching to get to that. If you can have a few lines or a paragraph as to what the benefits are, or to welcome them to what the document is, you can do that. And you've also got an opportunity to reintroduce another testimonial in there. But again, as you can see from that page, you know what you need to read, and you know what you could gloss over if you needed to.
And are any of those bits optional when you putting your proposal together? Could you choose not to have that section?
Completely, yes. You can omit any section that you choose to. If you don't want the testimonials in there, you can remove those. And certainly I would encourage people to keep things simple to start with and to evolve them over time. Yeah. And what can work really well with testimonials, Richard, is that when you start to get smart, you can start to kind of segment. So let's say, for example, you have a niche of a construction company, of medical clients, etc. You could actually bring in different testimonials that relate to them. The purpose of a testimonial is to provide proof that the promises you're making have been achieved by somebody else. That's fundamentally what a testimonial is in there for. So if you're signing up a builder, they don't necessarily want to read the testimonial from a dentist, because in their mind they're thinking, well, can you help me to do the same? So you can actually start to segment. You can start to segment by niche. You can start to segment by business size. I would just encourage you not to do that too early on. Sometimes people can get caught up in segmentation. In actual fact, we just need to get the process working to start with.
Great.
So after that, we're now into the pricing page. So we've got a front cover, a testimonial possibly, contents page, introduction, another testimonial possibly, and then we're into the price. You could call this whatever you want. Sometimes people put my fees or our fees or investment costs. People put in there as well. I always tried to put, for my accountancy place, get them to put investment costs, but Paul thought it was a bridge too far and wanted it just to be fees. But that's personal preference. But again, you know, when presenting fees, it's the most important page arguably in the document, and therefore it's not to hide away from it. It's to make it very clear, very succinct. You got a brief explanation of what it is, but you want to be showing what those fees are. And in our firm, Richard, we like to show a full breakdown of those fees. Some people don't want to show a full breakdown at that granular level. They may just want to show a price for bookkeeping or for all software and subscriptions, for example. And that's personal preference, or just an overall price. That's entirely up to you. We like to show that granularity. So we make things very clear. Our fonts very clearly broken down, exactly what it's going to cost per month, etc. I'm just going to
scroll. Do you think it makes much difference whether or not you're aggregating the fees or splitting them out and showing, or is it literally personal preference?
I think from a client's point of view and from your point of view, I like to show the granularity to an extent, because I think it's important that people know how their proposal has been built up, and therefore they know what to add further down the line as well. I think if you want to show sections, I think bookkeeping could be a potential one, maybe, but again, I'd probably still argue for granularity with that one. Software could potentially be one that you would just show an overall cost for. That would be fine. But again, for us, we're all about transparency and honesty and openness. So that's why we have it to that extent.
There's something about by breaking it out and being very transparent, that if one of those variable costs move, it's easier to go back and point to and say, this is what it was, this is what it is now, this one specific kind of line, the number of transactions, the number of people on a payroll.
Definitely. And I think that's where people miss out on so much money in their accounting business. Like, I speak to a lot of people and they're all thinking, I want new services, I want new clients, I want all this new stuff. And it's like, no, you don't. You just need consistency with what you're charging for at the moment. And so you need the ability to, even if it's just an extra £5 a month, to be able to move that fee up for payroll. So for me, to have the confidence to do that, you have to have had it broken down in the first place. One of the things that we do have in here is an alignment fee.
Yeah.
So the alignment fee, which you know about, is that if you're onboarding a client partway through their financial year and there are services that you charge over the full 12-month period, such as annual accounts, then they've got a catch-up payment to make for that service. So they could either choose to pay for that as a one-off fee, or they could choose to spread that payment over the remaining months of this engagement. And so what we do in the PDF here, so this is just a technical feature that we've kind of developed, is the way that we present an alignment fee. So the way that we would present the alignment fee in here is articulating something that's quite complex and that could make an accountant feel uncomfortable, saying, you owe me for 3 months that you've not paid for. And very few accountants do this, but for me, for you to demonstrate your expertise in the fact that you're a business as well and you're very astute with making money yourself, then you have to demonstrate confidence in making sure that you're charging for everything. But recognizing that, we've therefore made it very clear to effectively give you the script and all the information to be able to clearly articulate that, so that it's not awkward when presenting it to a client.
So the kind of things that could be included in that, for example, are things that the annual costs, so the year-end accounts and the tax returns, the corporation tax. So
exactly.
If you've just joined and your year-end's coming up in 3 months.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. But then because not everyone charges for it, so you've got to be mindful that someone could have gone and got 3 proposals, or they could have gone to 3 accountants that day or whatever, and you're presenting this and none of the other 2 firms are charging for it. So they've come to you, but now you've got to demonstrate your expertise, and you can feel a bit backed into a corner, like, why are you charging for this when no one else is charging for this? And you've got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and say, well, it's because we're very astute with making money. We're a profitable business ourselves, and we're going to help you to do the same. And we're not going to give away things for free. And likewise, we're not going to allow you to give away things for free as well. So do you want to work with an accountancy firm that can do this for themselves, or do you not? And therefore, we then arm you with everything that you would need to be able to confidently present that.
Cool, great.
Please note section is about articulating key bits of information, because again, we may have had a conversation here as I onboard you, but then it's 6 months down the line that something's come to light and my office manager is wondering why we're not making money. They need to be able to come back to this document. This is what we agreed. This is our promise. This is our promise to you. And what was it that was agreed in there, Now, this is fairly key. So we're presenting the fees here. And if they charge for everything and charge properly, you will be typically more expensive than their previous accountant. So we presented the fees, and straight away, I'm now showing you what we're trying to do, where we're trying to take you. I'm reminding you of your goal. So you said to me, you want to take your children to and from school every day, make £1 million and have the finance function taken care of. That's why you're paying that. Okay. And very often accountancy firms can fall too much in love with their own services, where in actual fact, we've got to fall in love with our clients' goals and objectives. And for me as a client, there is no value in bookkeeping or annual accounts or tax returns. There is value in me taking my kids to and from school every day. And so I'm not going to pay 2x, 3 times as much for accounting services, where on the face of it, it looks similar to what I was getting already. But the moment you can help to connect that to what I'm ultimately trying to achieve. There's no value in this, but there is value in that. And so it's very important that we have this amount here, which is twice as much as what you were paying for previously, maybe, connected to that emotional, how would you describe that, Richard? It's the emotional connection to the value, and the monetary connection to the value of what you're ultimately trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Does that make
why
sense?
This way around rather than the other way around? Why wouldn't you have this before the price?
Don't be getting all arsey with kind of actually legitimate questions like that, Richard, because I guess you could. I think it just comes back to the fact that I want to get you to the price fairly quickly. So just being mindful of that. So if people have seen this, that they may gloss over it in order to get to the price. So I need to present this to you.
If you stuck this beforehand, it feels like emotional blackmail.
Yes.
You want this, and then this is how much it's going to cost. Where if you do it the other way around, you're going, look, this is how much it's going to cost, but let's just remind ourselves where it's going to be leading to.
Yeah. And the reason why it's presented in this way as well, Richard, is if we've got these aspirational quotes earlier on of results we've already achieved for our clients. So you've seen that, you've seen what this guy achieved, and now I'm presenting what you're going to achieve in the exact same way that people have already achieved it. It's just to give you, it creates a sense of certainty that it's possible for you too.
Okay, great.
That's what I'm trying to hook you into.
Great.
This is such a huge page and people gloss over it. Like, okay, so I understand how much it's going to cost, what I'm getting, and why I'm getting it. Now what? What do I need to do to sign up? And it's presenting that. And one of the big reasons people don't sign up is because of their uncertainty as to what happens next. So that they're thinking in their head, okay, so if I push the button on this, what's going to happen? You're just going to ring my accountant up straight away and tell them that they're done, and I'm friends with them. How does that happen? And how do you get my data off me? And what's the next steps? So what we have to do is just attempt to remove some of that uncertainty very early on, and to show them the logical steps they need to take. So they need to sign their engagement letter. We're then going to set their payment up. We're going to get in touch with your last accountant, but don't worry, they're still going to speak to you. And what we're then going to start to implement for them. So this is just our approach of trying to alleviate some of those fears and making the button. That's the ring on the finger. Like, that's until that happens, we don't have a client. So in order to facilitate that, I need the button big and bold and in their face.
Yeah.
So we can't hide away from that. So this is what you're getting and how much it's going to cost. This is why you're doing it. And this is what you need to make that happen. They're the three really succinct, efficient pages in this document.
Yeah.
Now, if this works as it's intended, you're going to hit the button and we're into it. If they still have questions, which they may very well have, it can be a big decision for them, and they're just a more inquisitive person, and they just want to know, okay, what exactly am I getting? It's now at this point where they raise that question, not up until this point. So what am I getting? Why am I getting it? How do I sign up? Now I'm asking the question of what exactly do I get? You can include or skip this page out here, Rich. It's entirely up to you. But what can work well here is, again, another question is, okay, what happens next? But part of that uncertainty is, who do I get? Like, what am I getting on who's going to now be managing this for me? So there is a potential argument to say that you can have a meet the team page in here. This is optional. And this can work really nicely to help remove some of that uncertainty, so they now know who's going to be handling them. And it's nice to put people in here as well. You can tailor this as well to have specific teams. So if you've got multiple partners or different possible teams, you could have different meet the team pages. Like, we have a pod structure in our firm, for example. We have 3 pods. So depending on the proposal produced, would present the team from that specific pod. So you can communicate the value of who's going to be signing, of who's going to be looking after them. And then something else that we've developed in here as well is communicating the value of the technology that you're going to be providing them with. This is really key. And again, another way of demonstrating the expertise that you're bringing. Fundamentally, accounting services are intangible. They're magical. They're just like, it's a promise made and something magical delivered, and no one kind of gets to feel anything or see anything. What we're attempting to do with the entire proposal is to bring that quality, that physicality to the presentation of your services. And this is one way of doing that, which is how do you present the technology that you're providing them? How does that flow together? Because the value is not in the fact that I'm going to stick receipt bank in there or I'm going to stick zero in there. The value is in the fact that I'm going to assemble this financial technological system into your business that's going to give you the results that you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see why the team page actually fits with the app map as well. This idea of this is who's going to be supporting you. This is the technology that's going to be supporting you. It does flow quite nicely, doesn't it?
Yes. So what we're now starting to do, Richard, as we progress through this, is to start to build the evidence against the case effectively. So this is where if you were again on your knees saying, "Will you marry me?" and they've gone, "Convince me." So like we're now at this point in the proposal process. So this is when it's starting to have to work a little bit harder. So and also, just for someone that wants more information, they want that background as well. And also to be mindful of other stakeholders, because it's the other stakeholders that may need the convincing. So you may take this proposal back and hand this to someone. They weren't privy to the original conversation. So now they're like, well, they will just see it as a cold number. Okay, £700. Like, what am I getting? And when I came back from meeting Matt for the first time and told my wife that I'd met this wonderful firm and I wanted to sign up with them, the first question she asked me was, how much are you going to cost? And I told her, and she said, what are we getting for that? And I said, I have no idea. Because I had no way of showing her.
It's brilliant.
Oh, it's brilliant. It sounded great. So this is giving the evidence that you need.
Yeah.
And now we're into kind of what I would class as the appendices of the proposal, which is, if you need this information, it's here for you. And what we're now showing them is the breakdown of the services, an explanation of them, some value attached to that, and also the exact level you've selected here as well. So they can see how many staff you've got, the frequency of things, the quality of your record keeping. And again, this is not just for now, it's for all the stakeholders involved, because this document should be then handed to the full team that's going to be delivering this service to the client.
Yeah.
The final part of the proposal is the roadmap. So what are the services they didn't choose to go ahead with, and what would that cost for them to make a decision about that? A mistake that people can make with a proposal is they dump everything into it. So they're like, this is what you're getting. Oh, and by the way, this is everything that we also offer. And it's lazy. And you're then forcing that person to make a decision about what the next step is on their journey with you. And it's a little bit like, let's say you've gone to a restaurant and you'd ordered the fillet steak, and you've said to the waiter or waitress, what would be a great side order be with that? And they say, well, there's the menu, you pick something. Where what you want them to say is, oh, you've got the fillet steak with the peppercorn sauce. Our lettuce wedge with the blue cheese is an excellent accompaniment to that, with the sweet potato fries. Like, you want their expertise in there, because then that's what's helping you to make that decision. And so it's the same with this. You don't want to just dump everything in there. It is literally what is the 1, 2, or 3 next things that they will be taking on this journey with you, which is why we present it as a roadmap, to imply that it is coming.
Yeah.
And then obviously the key part of an entire proposal is a Bruce Lee quote. at the end, and no proposal is complete without one. So again, you've got an opportunity to round things off with something inspirational, just because you've been through a fairly factual, fairly cold part of the proposal here. So if you do want to warm them up and leave them with something inspirational at the end, you can add a quote or a testimonial in here, something inspirational. And I've not actually got it in this one, Richard, but we'll send you an example through. You can also have a back covering page as well, which again can reintroduce your brand, and it can reintroduce your contact details, literally as a back. If you imagine a back cover on a brochure or something like that, then that can be a really nice way to round things
let's
off.
just have a little kind of brief few words about that, James, actually, because we've got structure and there's intelligence and there's experience and methodology built up in a way this is structured. But how much store have you put on things like presentation, the way that it looks, the way that it feels, and how important is that?
Yeah, so when we first developed this, we're in our firm, we have a specific niche of digital creative agencies. So kind of the original design of this had already been through various industries and different processes historically. And then it found MAP, and then it was being presented to creatives and marketing experts. And so it had to stand up to their scrutiny so that they would be impressed to the point where they would potentially want the system themselves. We don't offer it to anyone else, but that was our original thinking, that we could open up a new vertical for ourselves. We never did, but that was in our minds. So there was a lot of thought into the design of this, but then you're also balancing it up with the efficiency of the document to make sure that it serves as a functional level, that it's repeatable, and that a system can produce this. Like if you want the ultimate creativity over a proposal, go and use like a design package or commission a marketing agency to produce every single one for you, you know. But then you've then got the issues of time and cost, etc. So we're always balancing up with what can the technology do, but how can we make it look as good as possible? One thing that we've had before is like font sizes, and people have said, "Oh, I want a smaller document, so we want the font size reducing." We've looked at different users, and not everyone has clear eyesight, you know, so we need font sizes to be of a certain size. We've had people where they said, we want it to be size 10.10 and we want it to be faint gray. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not inclusive. So we needed the document to be inclusive of the people that are potentially looking at it, Richard, and also of the devices that people could be looking at it. So how does this hold up on a desktop, on an iPad, on an iPhone, if it was printed out? And so we've been constantly thinking about, not only how does it look great, how do we echo your brand throughout this? How do we segment different parts of the data in here and what's relevant and what's not? How do we allow people to skim it? How do we allow people to go into depth with it? But also, who's looking at it and what are they looking at it on? So there's so many different ways to consider this, and that's what we've encapsulated with what we've created here.
It strikes me as well is that if you've got a very beautifully presented document, it's something that you're proud of, isn't it? It's something that you want to give out to somebody. Please have a look at this. It exudes a confidence above just having a sales confidence. This is something that you know is based on fact, you know is based on the service that you can deliver, you know is based on transparency, and you know is presenting your brand in the best possible way at the same time.
Yeah, that's correct. And also just like in the format of it, because it's also a binding document at the end of the day as well. And it's a contractual document when attached to the engagement letter. And I think this is worth noting as well, Richard, is that we've split the proposal out from the engagement letter. So we have the proposal document. So I'm going to switch back. So we have the proposal document. We also have the engagement letter. Sometimes people attempt to merge the two things. They have two separate functions. One is showing the value that you're going to bring and articulating that in a very clear, concise way and encouraging them to say, yes, I do.
Yeah.
The engagement letter is there to ensure legal compliance, that you comply with your association and have all the regulatory components in there. And also, if anything were to go wrong in the future, that we have a document to refer back to, right?
Yeah.
So it's key that their functions are separated and recognized, which is why we pull them both out.
Yeah.
But as a collective, they are a binding document. And we did some research around this. So I'm just going to scratch my nose again. We did some research around this, and we looked at people's approach to documents that are of an important nature. So proposals, engagement letters, terms and conditions, insurance documents. It was that collection of documents. How do you want to interact with them? Do you want to go on a portal? Do you want a web version of this? Do you want a website where you can kind of scroll through? Do you want a PDF document? What is it that you actually wanted? And the feedback was 100% of the survey, 100% was, we want a PDF document because it's shareable and we can store it in our own filing system. So it meant that it put them in, it gave them a sense of control. I can copy and attach this. I can send it to other people very easily. I can store it in my filing system. So we use Google Drive in our business. I can go and store it in Google Drive. In our accountancy firm, we use Google Drive as well. And we have a client component of Google Drive where they can access their pay slips, etc. That's where they're also going to access their proposal. We can refer back to it if we ever needed to. So for me, a PDF still stands up to the scrutiny of being a portable, secure document that allows people to manage it in their own way.
Great. James, that's been a magnificent tour. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't had time to cover so far?
I think just to add that accountants, bookkeepers provide incredible value to their clients and do an amazing service that, you know, that they ultimately help their clients' businesses to succeed and ultimately through that help the business owners to have the life that they want and employees to be paid, etc. And you magicians, I used to be a closet magician. Accountants are magicians. Like, you have these magical words that people don't necessarily understand. You do some things and some magic happens. A tax return gets filed, somebody gets paid, you get some money, etc. And very often I think it's very difficult for you to communicate the value of everything that you provide as an accountant and as a bookkeeper. So it's hard to start with. And then I don't think they necessarily do a good enough job of doing that because of how hard it fundamentally is to communicate that and the time it takes to communicate that. And I think that it's time that you should communicate it with everything that you can and all the value that you can, and to fully articulate and communicate the full value of your offering, of your firm, of your successes, and the brass tacks of this is what you're getting and this is what it's going to cost as well. And that's what we've attempted to achieve with this.
Great. Thank you, James. That's been great. Thank you.